Okay, we're continuing the Shir in Shar Givulim. Okay, we ended off with the Noda in the beginning of the first pair. Noda Kiyatam Akasher Kol Arba Olamos Hatzilus B'Yitzir V'Asiyah. A person connects. We know that a person connects all the four worlds, as we explained before. When you do mitzvahs, you connect all the different aspects of the world, since our neshama is actually part of, or is given, is created from all the different aspects of the world, as we said in the previous shirim. Vatzilus Bria Yetzira, and I see all the four main worlds. Now, therefore, each one of therefore, it must be that we have parts, spiritual parts, of every one of these worlds, every one of these four worlds. Now, these parts are all going to be called according to the five names that we mentioned before, which is nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. Shem nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida, kamo sheizbar, as we will explain. And also they relate to the five partzufim. Arich Bin relates to Yechida, Abba relates to Chaya, Ima relates to Neshama, Zeram Bin is Ruach, and Malchus relates to Nefesh. Again, each one of these also have five different parts, meaning there's a Nefesh of the Nefesh, there's the Ruach of the Nefesh, so each one of the five different parts of the soul are actually broken down into five different parts, as we're going to explain. Okay. Lo berega echad zoche lekachas kula, rak kefi zachyusa. ובתחילה נוטל חלק אחד הגרוע שבכולם. Now, first, a person isn't able to achieve all the different levels of his neshama at once, as we explained that a person doesn't. Here we're explaining that a person isn't born with all the five different aspects of the soul inside of him. Rather, he's only born with, or really only achieves the first one, the nefesh, the lowest aspect of his neshama, as he gets his bris milah with the first mitzvah. With that, he connects himself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and from then on, as he develops spiritually and also physically, and we see it in a different sense, that he attains more and more of different aspects of his soul. So when he turns 13 in general, he receives ruach, and so on and so forth. As he develops, he receives more. It doesn't necessarily mean there's not only a physical development. There's also a spiritual developments that cause him to attain more of the aspects of his neshama. And until then, the neshama didn't develop inside of him, or didn't go inside of him, and may still be as like a makif standing around him, or certainly not an active part in his neshama. But as he perfects himself and as he grows, then he gets more. V'hu nikra nefesh, the first lowest level which a person achieves is nefesh. And afterwards, if he achieves more, if more spiritually, he does more mitzvahs and he goes higher, he can achieve ruach, which is often given at bar mitzvah. We're going to explain exactly more details of how this works later. And as explained a lot of different other places in the Sefer Zohar. Now, very often a person can't actually go from the nefesh to ruach to actually achieve complete ruach without dying. The way it works, we're going to explain a lot of different divisions about different types of people that can go from one level to the next later on in the Sefer. But as often it happens that a person can't go from actually to attain the next level, the level of ruach, without dying. And similarly, a person who already has ruach, in general, if he comes as a gilgul and he's coming to be metek in his ruach, he can't go on to the level of neshama without dying, or doing certain things that we're going to learn about soon. Now, often happens that gerim, they are able to go from one level to the next, even though they only have nefesh. A lot of times, a ruach of a tzaddik can attach themselves to this person, And since this person himself isn't achieving the next level, he's able to attach himself to the next level, the level of ruach, and with that he's able to achieve very high spiritual heights. So this is more common with Gerim, and this is something that could happen. Also, we see by other, even a regular person who's not a Ger, can also get an Ibur Neshama, where a Neshama goes inside of him, where he could attain heights that are much higher than his own personal spiritual level. But in general, as we're saying right now, that at a person's spiritual level, where a person is born, if he's born with nefesh, or he's born working on nefesh, trying to attain nefesh, it will be very difficult for him to attain ruach without dying, and coming back into Gilgul to be metak in the ruach. Okay. So in many places in the Zohar speak about the concept of Gilgulim and how everything works. Parshas Truma, Parshas Vechin, Parshas Truma, or Parshas Breish Prat, Parshas Mishpatim, Daf Tzadik Daled, V'Zil, especially there in the beginning of Parshas Mishpatim, which there's a whole chapter there, whole part there speaking from Sabbath to Mishpatim, it's called, and that speaks about the topic of Gilgulim a lot. So if you want to look up in the Zohar to find out more about Gilgulim, you could look it up in there. V'Zil, and this is what it says there in Parshas Mishpatim. Ta'chazi, come and see, Barnash Kadis Yalid Yavin Le Nefesh V'chulu. A person, when he's born, he's given a Nefesh V'chulu, and when he gets bigger, when he gets better, he gets Ruach. When he gets better, he gets Neshama, and so on and so forth. That's what the Zohar says over there. And it's okay, so basically, as a person does more mitzvahs, he's able to achieve, and he's able to get more aspects of his neshama. More of them go into him, and that's how he achieves them. And after this is clear to us that a person is born basically with the lowest level, and from there he goes up. We have to tell you. I have to tell you some more hagdamos with regards to the above mentioned Jewish discourse. With regards to the concept of nefesh, ruach, and neshama, and the chalukah d'Rabbanan, and this aspect of chalukah d'Rabbanan, which you see the neshama is like an energy, is like a soul. Is like a kind of like electricity. And just like electricity, it has different expressions depending on the different kli that it has. Like if the electricity goes into an air conditioner, it makes cold, and if it goes into a light bulb, then it makes light. So too, the neshama actually goes into this aspect. It's the lowest part. It's almost like a vessel for the neshama. It's called a chalukah d'Rabbanan, which we're going to speak a little bit more about it soon. And it's the dress up, it's the clothing, so to speak, of the neshama, that the neshama dresses up inside the chalukah d'Rabbanan. From there also it goes into the body, or from there it goes into receive reward and punishment. And that is the expression of the neshama. Through that it expresses itself. Through that also it is able to receive the Gan Eden and Gehenna, all the pleasures and pain. And we're going to explain the inyan of these aspects more at length in Shar Daled of the Shemona Sharim, which is Shar Psukim, the basic. Rav Chaim Vital's son arranged the Sfarim of Rav Chaim Vital, of his father, into 8 basic Sharim, 8 basic gates, 8 basic sections. And one of the sections was Shar Psukim, where there he brings the explanation of the Arizal on the different Psukim. So there, he explains a pasuk Umil Katan Tasel Imo, which is referring to the There it explains. I'm reading now in the Matok Midvash. There it explains that in order to receive the ruach, that in order to receive ruach, you have to completely attain nefesh, and from then on you can go on to have ruach, and then so too with ruach you have to attain all of ruach to go on to neshama. Okay. And it's צריך להיות שלום בכל חמש בחינות נענכי מנוק ודעשייה וחמש בחינות נענכי מזרע בדעשייה וכן מאמא וכן מאבא וכן מעריך בדעשייה וכן ואז ניקו שיש לו נפש בשם דעשייה. So now, to explain in more detail what this is saying here, which is the parsha, which is in Sharp Sukkim, the Reb Chaim Vital explains, the Rizal explains that the neshama, there are four major worlds, and the nefesh majorly comes from, for the most part, we call the nefesh, comes from Asiya, and the ruach comes from Yetzira and Bria, the neshama, and the neshama of the neshama comes from Atzilus. Now, within nefesh there are 5 patzufim. Within Asiya there are 5 patzufim. There's Aychampin, Abba, Ima, Zerampin, and Nukva. Each one of those also corresponds to and is a bechina of nefesh, ruach, neshama, chayin, nechida. Nefesh is Malchus, Ruach is Zerampin, Ima is Neshama, and Abba is Chaya, and Yechida is Aychampin. And there too, so basically now in Asiya we have 5, and each one of those 5 also divided into 5, Nanachi, which is Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chayin, Yechida, and again that comes out to 5 times 5 for each of the worlds, and for each of the 5 different aspects. And there are 5 times 5 is 25, and times 5 is 125. So there's 125 different bechinas that a person must attain. Basically, it comes out to 25 for Asiya, 25 for Nefesh, 25 different bechinas you need for Nefesh, 5 for the Nefesh of Nefesh, 5 for the Ruach of Nefesh, 5 for the Neshama of Nefesh, and 5 for the Chaya of Nefesh, and 5 for the Yechid of Nefesh, that's 25. And then also with Ruach there are 25 bechinas, and also with Neshama, and also with Chaya, and also with Yechid, that comes out to 125. Okay, so there he's speaking about the Shmuel Hanavi, and he's discussing he's discussing the aspect of the Chalukah D'Rabbanan of Shmuel Hanavi, and there what happened was that when Shmuel Hanavi was born, Shmuel Hanavi was very young, he was brought to the Beis HaMikdash, and by the Beis HaMikdash he actually, when in the Beis HaMikdash, he taught halacha in front of his rabbi, in front of Eli Cohen, and for that there was a question whether a person who's not a Kohen is allowed to shecht a korban. And Shmuel Hanavi, as I think he was a child of 3, he stated that the law is that one may shecht a korban. It doesn't have to be done by a Kohen, even if the rest of the avoda has to be done by a korban. The shechita is not an avoda, or is not an avoda that has to be done by a Kohen, and therefore the zar is allowed to do it. And this Eli wanted to punish him, and he wanted him to die, wanted Shmuel Hanavi to die, and his mother, Shmuel Hanavi's mother, begged Eli Cohen not to, that he shouldn't die, and he didn't die. He lived, and but still there was a certain type of pagam that was left in his Chalukah D'Rabbanan, or his certain this low vessel of his neshama, the dress up, the clothing of the neshama, and that took into factor later on when after Shmuel Hanavi died, Shaul HaMelech was trying to find out what would happen with him in a certain war, and he went to the Ur Mitumim, and he wasn't able to get an answer. Sorry, the Ur Mitumim was already the Kohen. He wasn't able to get an answer from the Ur Mitumim, and he wasn't able to get an answer from any of the prophets. So he actually tried to get Shmuel to speak to Shmuel Hanavi through a necromancer, through one who practiced the Avodah Zarah of Ov, some type of a certain way of raising the dead. And Avner ben Ner, the general of the army, had a mother who practiced this witchcraft. It's a type of evil, I'm not sure what to call one of the evil things, either witchcraft or sorcery or however it is, evil types of things. And she was able to bring Shmuel Hanavi up from the dead. So the obvious question, and something, pretty clear is how can a tamid power like necromancing, how can that actually bring a tzaddik like Shmuel Hanavi up from the dead? If he's in Gan Eden, you can't just pull him out of Gan Eden from the highest levels of Gan Eden just with some powers of Tumah. Powers of Tumah don't get up that high. So the explanation is that since there was a slight pagam left in his Chalukah D'Rabbanan, which is the lowest aspect of his neshama, through that aspect she was able to grab on and bring him up from there. There's a whole story about how he actually came up head first, and usually when people are brought from the dead, they come up feet first. So therefore, Avner's mother, who was doing this, practicing this ritual, raising the dead, was recognized that Shmuel Navi was coming up for the king, and that this person, he actually came in hiding. Shaul HaMelech hid himself, dressed up as a normal person, went to the necromancer, and she was able to figure out that he was the king through that. That's a whole story in and of itself. But here we have this pasuk, which relates to, I think, the mother of Shmuel Hanavi, which is brought in Shar Psukim. Okay, now, also it explains there in Inyan that just like Zerampin has three different bechinas, there's Ibor Unika and Gadlus, where that's the embryo, the state where the baby is inside the womb of the mother. There's a state where the baby is nursing, and there's a state where it already grows up, it's not a baby anymore. So those three stages that we experience in our lives are three stages that the spheres also kiviyachol in a very borrowed sense. Obviously, we're the mashal, they're the real thing. In the spheres also go through these stages, and they have a development stage where they go through these three stages, Ibur Yanika and Mochin. And so too, our neshamas also have these three development stages, which is Ibur Yanika and Mochin. So too, so neshama, Dahainu. בתחילה בחלק הנוקבה דעשייה של כל מחמשת פרצופים ואחר כך בכל פרצופי עשייה. At first with the nukva of Asiya, which has 5 partsufim, and afterwards with all the different partsufim. So each one of the partsufim have these bechinas of development stage, and also with all the other 4 aspects of the world, each one of them have the development stage. And what is this mil katan, this small jacket, which is referred to in this pasuk that we brought before, that is in Shar Psukim? It's the sod of the mochin de katnus anikra chalukah d'Rabbanan. He's saying it's the concept of the mochin de katnus, which is the smallest level, which is called chalukah d'Rabbanan, the lowest level, or the lowest and earliest stage of development, that's called the chalukah d'Rabbanan. And this becomes actually a lavush, a clothing for the mochin de gadlus, which come later, which is the higher aspects of the neshama, of the perception. So here we see that the lower aspects of the neshama actually, in this particular sense, by the chalukah d'Rabbanan, actually dress up the higher aspects of the neshama. And like we spoke about in previous shiurim, that often in a physical sense, again, this is just as a mashal, we see that a person's childhood, which relates to the first 2 stages, I guess Ibur and Yanika, they actually do have an effect on his adulthood. His adulthood is, in a sense, more internal, but because there he has more consciousness and intelligence and more developed emotions. But those are going through, and they have the mask of the childhood. And this is in a psychological form of this concept, which is obviously in a much more ruchnistic way. But so too our neshamas have what's called a chalukah d'Rabbanan, which is a more premature stage of intelligence and perception that the neshama has as in a more undeveloped state, and that actually is the clothing and the expression through which the more intelligent aspect and the more developed aspect, which is called mochin de gadlus, expresses itself through. Okay, hope that was clear. שנודע מה שאמר חז"ל, now in the מתוק מדבש, נודע מה שאמר חז"ל, מייס אחד מן המשפחה, תדאג כל משפחה. It says in Gemara Shabbos that if one person dies, one person in the family dies, so all of the mishpacha, the whole family, should be very careful. Mikol sheken hayoser krovim elamis shehigia lahem anezek b'zeh yoser mirachokim mishpacha atzma. And certainly those people who are direct relatives and very close to the one who died. And that's why we have a mitzvah, we have a chiyuv to do avilus, which is to mourn for the deceased, and especially those who are really close to the one who died. Because also to them, the damage, the loss was actually came to the person, to the people who are close to the one who died. And the aspect, the idea that was actually lost, what was actually damaged by the aval, by the person dying, kinoda, shekol neshamos nitlim ba'adam elyon shuzapin. Now we know that all of the neshamas are sourced and rooted inside the adam elyon, which is parts of zampin. And each one of the neshamas have 248 limbs. And that's called Adam Shalom, a combination of 248 limbs. And now that aspect that this neshama was attached to in Zampin, from that aspect, the mochin of Abba and Ima disappear. We explain, this is largely described in the Arizal, how the development of the spheres go from mochin de katnus to mochin de gandos, which is the development of the Ibur Yanika mochin. How mainly it's the one of the major factors of this development is the receiving the mochin from Abba and Ima. Abba and Ima give over certain aspects of Netzachot and Yesod, the lower spheres of their spheres into Zampin, and that becomes mochin for Zampin. And Zampin then has more developed intelligence. This is a recognition of the Kadosh Baruch Hu and other things which is namely discussed, more elaborately discussed in Eitz Chaim and the other Sfarim of the Arizal. Now when this person dies, all that's left inside Zampin, from this shorish, from the root of this person, is only mochin de katnus. Because mochin of gadlus is called chayam. So here we see that this person who is attached very close to his family, and apparently they draw sustenance from a very similar place, from a very close place. So when one of the people dies, the mochin and the or that was given to him actually leaves. And the mochin is called chayam melech. Intelligence is called the life of the king. And when he dies, that's there is misa. There's the opposite of chayam melech, the life of the king, and therefore that's the bechina of mochin de katnus. Kevin shemeis kor mo shegam bechina sheshorsham. And when someone dies in the family, it's a sign that even those people from close family members, that their mochin de gadlus also left them. And those people return to the days of mochin de katnus when they have lesser intelligence, lesser recognition of הקדוש ברוך הוא. Also, the avel laniach tefillin b'yom rishon, and therefore the avel is not allowed to put on tefillin on the first day, and other dinim is not allowed to Torah, and other things like that, which are all the aspect of mochin de katnus. Why? Specifically tefillin, ki tefillin nikra chayam melech, because tefillin is called the life of the king. V'hem mochin de gadlus ve'inum nichnosim ba'avel b'yom rishon, and they are the mochin de gadlus, and they don't go into the avel on the first day. So we should be. This is a little bit about Avelis here. But just to end off on a more positive note, we're going to explain now. We spoke about the Chalukah D'Rabbanan, how different aspects of our neshama dress up inside other aspects of our neshama. We could, like our childhood, our infancy developed, dresses up our our older stages are dressed up inside our infancy, and we act based on a lot of the principles and a lot of the aspects that we picked up from there. And what we need to do is actually to break through all of this with the inner part, the most inner part of our neshama, to break through all the outer parts of the neshama. This is similar to Avram Avinu, what he did in digging the wells, that we have to break through to attain our actual neshama. Because surrounding our actual neshama is all these lower bechinas of our neshama, things that different smaller, lesser, proper things that we might have learned or done or taught ourselves when we were younger. And to break through this, we have to dig deep inside of ourselves, which is similar to what Avram Avinu did, digging the wells. And with that, we should be zocheh to find a wellspring of fresh water, which is the depths of our neshama, and be zocheh to be megala this and to bring it out inside the world. And with that, we become kodesh, and we can be mekadesh others.